Welcome back to Yarn is a Second Language. It's me, Nikki, and I thought we'd have a tiny knitting demonstration here because the rain is absolutely pouring down outside, and I was in the garden and it ran me back inside. So what better time to pick up some needles and knit? I've got some Premier Just Yarn worsted here. This is one of our finds from the Dollar Tree, and it's just a medium weight yarn. I've got some size 5.5, that's upside down. But just some medium knitting needles, and I've got another ball already wound because I find it a little bit difficult to knit from just the put up here, the skein here. So let's get started. I want to cast on a few stitches, so I'm going to go through this really quickly. I think there are tons of beautifully made knitting tutorials on YouTube, so it's just a matter of finding the one for you. Maybe this isn't it, but I just wanted to show people really quickly, if you're looking to get into knitting, how easy it can be. So I'm going to make a slip knot. We'll put our needle in, and we're not going to tighten it up too tightly, so we still want to get in there. So let's just do a few stitches. In knitting, you have to have stitches put on your needle. So I do the long tail cast on, which is kind of holding the yarn in a slingshot kind of motion, next to the thumb, down next to the finger. That would be 2 stitches, next to the thumb, next to the finger, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do 6, 7, 8, 9, and one more. Let's do 10. So I've got 10 stitches, hopefully. Yeah. And we're ready to go. I tell my people that I teach how to knit, you cast on once during a project. So if you didn't get that, there's plenty of tutorials that can help you, or with a different technique or different speed. But this is how you get started. The tail yarn, we don't want to do anything with the tail yarn at this point. We don't want to cut it off. We don't want to have it end up in our knitting because we're not going to get very far with that. So I want to use my working yarn, which is the yarn attached to my ball of yarn. So let's get started. We're going to knit this first stitch. Now I like to teach beginners the English way of knitting because I think they find it a little bit easier to hold and then work in this hand. So again, we're going to keep the tail out of the way. In through the front, there's a little rhyme, and I'm going into this stitch right there. You can hear that thunder. In through the front, around the back, and all I did was go around the back of that needle there. And I'm not going to pull it too tight, but I am going to hold it down through the hole, and off jumps Jack. So that first stitch usually is a little bit loose. I tighten it up just a hair. I don't want it to be so tight. The tension you put in your knitting is the tension you're going to have to work with. So I try to go easy. It shouldn't hurt my hands. It shouldn't be very stressful. We see I've got a lot of fingers involved, and that's what I think beginners struggle with a lot. I call it your knitting frame, and you have to have a lot of hand-eye coordination, a lot of hand-eye involvement before it becomes a very natural movement for you. And I think it helps you to just pace yourself. Give yourself a little bit of grace. Give yourself a little bit of time to master this. This is not natural. It's not easy, but I think you can do it. So let's try another one. In through the front. Again, there's a little space between the yarn and the needle, and that's where I'm going to aim. In through the front, and I just slide my needle back along this front needle. So let's get my working yarn around the back, and I'm just taking the yarn back there. I'm gonna holding my needle, holding my yarn. It's a lot to think about. Down through the hole we just went through, and off jumps Jack. So that's 2 stitches. Eventually all of our stitches here will end up over here and we'll switch. So let's do a little bit more, and I cast these on a little bit tight so I can maneuver this stuff around, in through the front, around the back, down through the hole, and off jumps Jack. So you see I'm using my fingers, I'm using my hold. Some people find it easy to brace the needles on their leg, on the tabletop, anything like that. I think it's just a lot of muscle memory. People get frustrated, it's okay. It's just yarn. You're the boss of this yarn. So let's do another. In through the front. You don't have to check every time, I'm just showing you, oops, that it's just in through the front, around the back, down through the hole, and off jumps Jack. In through the front, around the back, down through the hole, and off jumps Jack. In, around, I like thunderstorms, down and off. And we got this last one. Be careful not to pull it off when you're maneuvering in, around, down, and off. So there we have our first row of knitting. And it's okay if yours aren't even. It's okay if you feel like they're not tight here. This stitch is unsupported on this side, so it's going to be a little loosey-goosey. This stitch may also be, but we've done our first row. And for beginners, it's very important to make sure you have the same number you started with if that's your goal. And we have 10. So to do our second row, our working stitches need to go over there. So we just turn it around, switch our empty needle. And so again, I'm teaching a friend of mine how to knit, and sometimes this first stitch goes like this. And you can't always tell, and sometimes it's looser, sometimes it's tighter, but that looks like 2 stitches. So this is how we will make a triangle instead of our, 10 stitches. We will gain a stitch if we treat this like 2 stitches. So we always want to I always reposition my knitting, give it a gentle kind of nudge into place. And we can tug that down, our working yarn down just a little bit, and we see that that's 1 stitch, really. Same as before. In through the front, around the back, down through the hole, and off jumps Jack. So let's just knit a little bit and listen to this thunderstorm. big one. Last one. And again, we can be very gentle with our knitting and kind of pull it into place, but that is how I knit. I was going to go another, and my tension's a little wonky because we went a little slower than usual. I am propped up on several pillows so I can have my hands in the camera, but that comes with time. That comes with practice. That comes with being relaxed with your craft. And I hope you can get something out of this. I hope you take up your knitting, relax, sit back, and give yourself some time to learn and be patient with yourself. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope we can do this again. It was kind of fun with this thunderstorm, but I appreciate you watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you like, and I'll see you later. Okay, bye.